Welcome to CK Sports Talk on 99.1 CKXS with Peter Cobb and Shawn Moynihan. CK Sports Talk is brought to you by Victory Ford Lincoln, 301 Richmond Street in Chatham, the Chatham-Kent Sports Network online at cksn.ca and 99.1 CKXS.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to CK Sports Talk, right here on the Mighty XS. You know what? That's 99.1 on your radio dial. My name is Peter Cobb, and yes, sitting right across from me, you know him as the wizard from Wallaceburg. He is Mr. Shawn Patrick Moynihan, our producer, Corey North, who will be heading south to Richtown tonight, I'm sure, and other days. Mr. Moynihan, he's growing a playoff beard.
He's got his playoff beard going. He's right in the mood. We're going to talk about his hockey picks a little later, which were quite unique. I kind of thought most people, when we asked for their picks, would give us specific teams, not the great Corey North. He really threw a wrench at us, but we'll talk about that a little later in the show.
Hey, you know what? 2 weeks ago, we had Fred Osmond live in studio, and it was so good. We replayed it again on Easter Monday. Just an incredible guy, Fred Osmond.
Absolutely. And first of all, Pete, a great community guy. Everything he's done has been for the community. His last book on the history of baseball in Chatham-Kent was really, he finished that book for Chatham Minor Baseball. And I found it fascinating. And, you know, I didn't realize baseball basically has been played in Chatham, organized baseball, for over 100 years. And OBA championships as back as 1934. And he had just some great stories. And you know what stood out for me? Back then, the names of some of the teams, like the 1944 Chatham Arcades and the 1946 Chatham Shermans. Of course, all named after stores, companies, businesses, etc. So, really...
How about Edward Pinnance, who was the first from Walpole Island, 1903, pitched for the Philadelphia Athletics. First major leaguer.
Yeah, played it. Actually, I think he said in 4 games or something like that. And, you know, we've never really heard about him. So just a tremendous collection. And that book is really based on research. He's scoured every library and record book, and pretty interesting stuff.
And a big Tiger fan, too, Shawn. Remember the
yes.
he had on the
yes.
Tigers?
We love the 1968. You know, and then, Pete, we talked to him, and we asked him about some other, you know, projects he's worked on, and he tells us that, he did a cookbook for the Chatham-Kent Hospice and donated it, and so they could raise revenue, which, again, just speaks to his community involvement. We've talked a little bit about the hospice before. Incredible building and facility and genuine staff and just outstanding. And I know we both actually had a little connection on the weekend with the hospice. Why don't you tell everybody about your little pickleball experience?
Well, you know, I got an email from Pete Martin at Coach Co TV, and I was looking for, they had a kind of a celebrity pickleball tournament on Saturday at the Healthplex, and I said to Jay, it was funny, Jay Salisbury, the guy that kind of organized it, and he's the kind of the president of the Chatham Pickleball Club. I said, boy, you're really reaching when you think Peter Cobb's a celebrity.
Well, Pete, I heard your name drew thousands of ants, and no, I heard you'd be a real draw, and that's great to kick it off.
You know what? Rick Nichols was there, Dave Van Kesteren, and some other folks too. So it was fun to. And, you know, pickleball is neat.
I'm not really sure what it looks like, Pete. Explain this to us.
Well, pickleball is, and you know what, folks, we're going to have Jay Salisbury in 2 weeks. We're going to have him here in the studio, and he's going to go over it with us. But it's really played on kind of a badminton court, but you have a tennis court height net, and you have, it looks like a wiffle ball is kind of the ball.
Right.
You have a paddle that you use, but there's some interesting rules. Very competitive. They've actually now have had 2 world championships down in Naples, Florida. They host the World Pickleball Championships down there in Naples during
Well, maybe you'll get to play there sometime.
Well,
they're looking for celebrities.
You involved, so you and I could be a doubles team and take on the world.
In Naples, Florida. I'm into that. Well, that's great. And that was, of course, that was a fundraiser, an initial fundraiser for the Chatham-Kent Hospice. And then on Sunday, I had the real pleasure with my wife Jen to participate in their hike. I don't know how many people they had out, Pete, but I know prior to the event, they already had over $27,000 in donations, in sponsorships. I hear with walk-ups, etc., that they doubled that. Of course, Victory Ford Lincoln, our fine sponsor of this show, was there with a Lincoln Drive event. It's always fun to take those Lincolns for a drive. And well, here and there. But anyways, kudos to Fred Osmond, first of all, for helping out the hospice way back when with his donation of his book, the pickleball tournament on the weekend, and of course that tremendous hike. And I would assume what I'm hearing is that event's likely going to become an annual event for the hospice. The hospice, and they were actually on the news today here on CKXS. They have to generate like $800,000 a year in operating costs. And I just, I gloat about it, because anyone who's had any experience at the Chatham-Kent Hospice, it is absolutely spectacular.
Well, you know the Moynihan family and how they looked after Gump.
For sure.
Really, and I know how highly you spoke of them, and I just think it's a great thing. And I had a chance to chat with John Lawrence during that interview that we aired here on the Mighty XS News, and it just is something that you don't think about it. Maybe you get going on with life, but when that time comes, and it's
for sure.
I remember how highly you spoke of it, and it's just great that we have that right here in Chatham to make that time period in our lives
well, Pete,
easier.
You and I often talk about, when you're running tournaments, you're doing events, about community involvement, about sponsorships. And I know you and I have been involved in a number of fundraisers in this community. To see the community involvement in the construction of the hospice. I mean, the Ursuline Sisters of Chatham, donated an entire wing. All the tech savvy. It just so happens the room my dad was in, donated by Tech Savvy. And for people listening, the rooms have fireplaces, TVs, couches, their beverage fridge. They're just incredible. So kudos to that great event on the weekend and to the Chatham-Kent Hospice. And we're going to pursue the pickleball discussion on a later show.
We will.
But Pete, we better take a break. And when we come back, we've got some more news. We had a couple weeks ago had the pleasure of talking to Grayson Ladd, drafted 13th overall into the OHL, Kitchener Rangers. We're going to talk once again with Grayson when we come back.
Welcome back to CK Sports Talk with 99.1 CKXS. To submit your local sports news, info, or score, email news@ckxsfm.com.
All right, welcome back. I had some people saying they couldn't quite hear me very well. Thank you to Sparky Leonard, Denise Ladd, tuning us in.
For sure, and that's a rarity. That's almost got to be a first if people can't hear you. Pete, what do you think?
Well, I brought this extra microphone number 2 over here. It's kind of like a backup. You got somebody warming up in the bullpen.
Beautiful. And Pete, just a couple messages. I just we got some numbers confirmed. And that Lincoln Drive event on Sunday generated $7,500 for the hospice, and that's just a great event. And also the Rotary Clubs of Chatham Kent donated over $160,000 to the construction of the Chatham-Kent Hospice. So again, I can't say enough about it, and we're going to talk some pickleball and the Chatham-Kent Hospice again at a later time. But Pete, we got to talk a little bit about Grayson Ladd. We were kind of excited. We heard from Grayson and knew that he was quite a prospect in the OHL upcoming draft. The kid's only 16. Played a few games, of course, with the Chatham Maroons this year. Had an injury, had a separated shoulder for a while. Anyways, we met him here and his family. It was an outstanding visit. And we actually said we felt Kitchener would be a perfect spot for you. It's close to home.
You called it.
They got a great educational program. We knew Kitchener was like about in the middle of the picks, but what a joy to hear he was picked 13th overall. He was the very first defenseman picked. And why don't we hear from Grayson Ladd as we caught up to him a little bit later at his high school.
All right, Peter Cobb, Shawn Moynihan, CK Sports Talk. We're here with Grayson Ladd, and you know what, Mr. Moynihan, CK Sports Talk brings good luck. We had this young lad on Monday. We had another kid, Derek Druin, a couple of years ago, and what has he done? Well, he just went and won the World Championships and won a gold medal. This kid drafted 13th overall, first defenseman taken in the OHL draft. What do you got for him?
Well, Grayson, of course, you were on our show last week, and Pete and I were so impressed. You were so composed, so professional. However, we could really sense your family's excitement about the upcoming draft, of course, held on Saturday. Tell me, has it sunk in yet?
Yeah, it's just starting to sink in now. 13th overall is pretty high. I didn't think I was going to go that high. My range was first to third round, I think, and then I got the phone call from Kitchener, and then there was just all excitement, and my parents were a little teary-eyed, that's for sure. And then it was just a great day in general. So.
Absolutely, and so you did head right down to Kitchener. I thought that was awesome on Saturday. Tell us about the visit down to Kitchener.
Yeah, it was. It's an amazing place. The atmosphere. We were down there earlier for a visit. The atmosphere at the game is just incredible. And then, so we met everybody. Met Murray, the old GM now. He's just the education dude now. But then we met Mike, and then we met all the scouts and all the head coaches, and Jay McKee and those guys. And then I got my picture taken, and my first interview was a Ranger. So it was a great day, that part of the day too. So.
Well, you got some great press. I was reading about it today. And now tell us, what are the next steps? What will the spring and summer months look like for you?
Hopefully rookie camps in a couple weeks. So hopefully I'll do good showing at that, and then get invited back to main camp, which is at the end of August. And then the Gold Cup. Hopefully I can make that and play well at that. That's a stepping stone for playing for Team Canada at U17 next this September. And then so hopefully I do well at that. And then that's just working out at Rosler's. Athletes feel there on the ice with Tyler and off the ice with Colin. So that's probably what my summer will look like.
Well, let's talk about that just a bit. Possibly further big news this coming week. Let's talk about that Gold Cup and tell all our listeners what's involved there.
Yeah, so there's a team from Alliance, which the Cyclones played in, and then there's a couple teams from the Toronto area, and then like OMHA, which is the Bulldogs, and there's like Ontario, and then Sudbury up there. So it's a 7-game tournament. So they choose a 40-man roster after that to go up to Calgary, and then they choose their teams from there, and then they'll compete. I don't know where it is this year, but they'll compete against the Russians and the Swedens and all those guys for the U17. So.
And are you going to get that decision this week? Are you going to hear this week about if you've made that 40-man roster?
No, I'll just know if I've made the Alliance Gold Cup, and then the Cup. It's the Gold Cup's May 2nd up in Kitchener, so then we'll go up there to play. Then Hockey Canada will be there scouting, and then I'll hopefully get the invite back to Calgary to go up to Calgary to try out for them. So.
Well, congratulations to you, kid. We really appreciate the time you and your family have given us on CK Sports Talk.
Grayson, well, again, congratulations, and listen, we're going to have you again on in the fall, and I know, Mr. Moynihan, someday this guy's going to wear the blue and white for me and bring that Stanley Cup to us. Thanks again, Grayson.
Thank you very much.
Wow, what a great kid, I'm going to tell you.
Well, the Rangers, I read a lot of press coming out of Kitchener, and I think the one headline, Pete, was Rangers target smooth skating defenseman with their first pick. And I did a little bit of research, and I see the Rangers are losing 2 overage blue liners. It looks to me they're going to have room on defense. And something else, Grayson, the kid wears number 3. And I just happened to check the roster on Kitchener, and no one currently is wearing number 3 on that roster. So wouldn't it be incredible? I hope he makes that team, and I really look forward to going down to Kitchener and seeing the game.
Oh, no question. What was really neat about that interview, too? Do you remember right at the end, there were 2 grade 10 girls that came up and said, "Oh, hey, Grayson, we're going to the Cone and Shake Shop.
Yeah.
Don't you want to come with us? And I had to tell him, listen, he's got to be over at Colin Rosers for skating, So
well, he's a superstar. I'm sure.
Away.
Yeah, I noticed no one asked us for ice cream, And but the Kitchener Rangers, I hear so many great things about the organization. Their general manager is new. He's been there 2 years. Well, he's been with them for a number of years, but he's sort of been the general manager in waiting last year and was appointed this year. It's Mike McKenzie, actually son of Bob McKenzie, and who's on TSN and a number of the sports stations, and seems to be just one of the up-and-comers in junior hockey. And, I looked at some of the people who have played in Kitchener, and they have a absolute bevy of fine NHLers. Bill Barber, Larry Robinson and Paul Coffey played parts of seasons there. Scott Stevens and Al McInnes had a tremendous career. In fact, Al McInnes scored 5 goals in one game there for Kitchener, and the record still stands. Mike Richards, Brian Bellows, Walt Tkachuk. Remember the great Walter, 1968. Yeah. And recently, John Gibson, who's playing he's a goaltender in the NHL today. So there is some real keepers there. And
maybe Grayson Ladd's going to be the next name amongst those greats.
Well, you hope so. And I hope you didn't jinx a kid by saying, I hope you wear the blue and white someday.
That's no jinx. We're on our way.
Well, we're going to talk hockey a little bit later. But I don't know. I think a lot of people would agree with me. He'd likely look better in the red and white at the new Joe Louis. But listen, Pete, and also that OHL playoff right now, if people follow it, oh, my nerves. London beat out by Erie, Game 7, overtime, like it couldn't get any closer. And I see Erie, the Erie Otters and the Owen Sound Attack right now are knotted at 1 game each. Mississauga Steelheads are up 2-0 on the Petes at Peterborough, and we had him on the show, the great Trent Fox.
Yeah, he's having a heck of a playoff
Well,
series.
His plus-minus is incredible. I think in the playoffs he's +8 or something like that. And
9 points, 4 goals, 5 assists, I think, so far.
Yeah, he really had a great year since he got traded there. And, we're looking forward to the Memorial Cup in Windsor, Ontario. It doesn't start to May the 19th. And it's going to be over Sunday, May 28th, that championship game. But if you think about it, the Windsor Spits get an automatic bye to that. And they have basically been off for a month of hockey, without hockey for a month. So that's going to be really incredible to see how that rolls out.
All right. Well,
Pete, listen, we better take a break, hear from some of our sponsors. When we come back, we surveyed a number of people and asked them for their picks. Now, some of the people got us their hockey picks before round 1 was over. I noticed a few people conveniently got their picks in after round 1. But we're going to talk about who's going to win the Stanley Cup. We'll be right back with CK Sports Talk.
Because local does matter. This is CK Sports Talk on 99.1 CKXS.
All right, folks, welcome back. CK Sports Talk, Peter Cobb here. I know we've had a few mic issues here tonight, and normally, like you said, that's not usual where I can't be heard.
I know.
And you're the guy that's coming loud and clear.
Well, I'm meek and mild, and you're usually out there, so just a switch of roles tonight, Pete.
Well, we brought our producer in here, the great Corey North, who'll be heading south. And, look at that playoff beard. We mentioned it earlier.
Absolutely.
We're talking hockey
He's
playoffs.
ready to go. And, Pete, second round of the playoffs about to start. Some big surprises, I think. We're going to have Nashville and St. Louis, Edmonton and Anaheim. We're going to have the New York Rangers, who just stunned the Montreal Canadiens, against Ottawa, who had a tremendous playoff run thus far. And we're going to have Pittsburgh against Washington. But before we discuss this, we should hear from Candid Cole.
Well, and he is a hockey aficionado. Let's see what he's got to say.
Take a knee. Candid Cole, personal perspectives of an armchair athlete with Bill Cole.
When I worked in sports radio in Toronto, I was a rarity. I wasn't a native of Toronto. I was a Corona kid. So when coworkers used to talk about what a great sports town Toronto was, I usually end up in an argument with 2 or 3 of them at a time. I won't even agree that Toronto's a great hockey town. It's a Maple Leaf town, but I wouldn't consider it the capital of the hockey world by any stretch of the imagination. Fans might know and love their Leafs, but it ends there. Those thousands of people you see gathered outside the ACC each night would be hard-pressed to name the top 2 centers on 5 other teams. Same with Blue Jay fans, not great baseball fans. Ask them to name the top 2 or 3 starters for any other ball club. They couldn't do it. It's a front-runner town. Win, they'll show up. But it's not because they're big baseball or hockey fans. It's what the kids today call FOMO, or fear of missing out. They need to be there to get those Facebook and Instagram pictures, see and be seen. Well, the Raptors, they're an afterthought, and the Toronto Argonauts, well, they get barely a passing thought. And don't get me wrong, I love Toronto, but to consider it one of the great sports towns in the world, I just don't buy it.
99.1 presents Candid Cole with Bill Cole, personal perspectives of an armchair athlete. Find more Candid Cole online at ckxsfm.com.
Oh, there you go, boy, pulling no punches.
I love it. I love it. And Pete, your Toronto Maple Leafs were eliminated. I think 5 overtime games.
5, incredible.
And you're not going to like this either, but I really think Toronto missed an incredible opportunity. And I know what people are going to say. Oh, they're young. That's going to really improve their chances next year. They'll have so much more experience next year. But I don't know if I buy that argument. I really thought Mitch Marner, and you and I talked about this, that playoff hockey just was not suited to him. He had no room. I know you're a big fan of Austin Matthews, and he was certainly incredible. But I really think the Toronto Maple Leafs missed a tremendous opportunity. And, I'm sure they're going to get another, but wow. And I know you were down. I think it was game 4 or 5 in Toronto. Tell us about that experience.
You know what? There was nothing like it. I took my son Michael. It was his birthday present. Happy birthday, Michael! It's his actual birthday today. I think he's 24. Good gracious! Anyhow, we went down to.
Patty said 25, but it's okay.
The ACC, and you just wouldn't believe, even riding the subway down there, and. My goodness gracious, you get down to Union Station and the place, and that Maple Leaf Square is absolutely crazy. We ran into the Dart Man, who was, believe it or not, he was just standing outside of a real sports bar. And there's how, somebody can become so popular just by one video clip on CBC. Truly, truly incredible experience. And I got to tell you, when the Leafs were down 4-2, in the third period, and Austin Matthews scored to make it 4-3. That place erupted, and I thought to myself, "Oh my goodness, here we go. We're going to get another late goal and force overtime." And wouldn't you know, it was Washington that came right back down and scored kind of a fluky goal. And that one really hurt. And then we scored with the goalie out, and actually had a chance, a shot from the point, but it got blocked. And 5-4 was the final, one of the rare games that didn't go into OT.
Yeah, well, this first round was just fantastic. And Pete, I really wonder about the Montreal Canadiens and the Chicago Blackhawks. High hopes for both. Montreal in particular, boy, you can ride Carey Price, and everyone said that would happen, but they just do not score enough goals, Montreal. It's going to be interesting to see what they do in the offseason.
Now, Shawn, we asked a number of people here and friends and family about who their picks were, and
right.
It was interesting to see. I just got a text from Jay Smith, and we got to make a little bit of fun of Jay. I know we make fun of him because he's a Blue Jay fan, number one,
right?
But he is, he's a Red Wing guy like you are, and his golf game is probably as good as theirs too, I'm sure. But it's interesting to hear some of these picks.
Let's talk about our picks, and we mentioned this a little bit earlier. Some people responded to us immediately with their picks as round 1 started. I call those courage picks. A few people really didn't respond to us to after things got going. And, round 1 was almost over. So, I mean, they had a lot more information than maybe the people who selected before everything got rolling. But let's just talk about the station here. Chris Summerfield, he went with Chicago and Washington, with Washington winning it all. In fact, he even said in 6 games. So Chris is still alive. Greg Hetherington,
The hater.
San Jose versus Washington, with San Jose taking it in 6.
The Oilers sent them packing.
Greg is done. Now, Jay Smith, fine announcer here and just outstanding. He chose Edmonton versus Pittsburgh, with Pittsburgh winning it all. It's pretty intelligent. Right now, he's looking pretty good. And our favorite here, Corey North, our producer,
I love these picks.
Yeah, this is his picks. He says, I'm going to take the best team to play the worst team in the final, and I say the worst team will win in 6. So we're not used to getting picks, Pete, where you and I have to do all the work and all the math. But, I mean, the worst team, last team to get in the playoffs, the worst record, were the Maple Leafs. So that means she should have Chicago at the Leafs, with the Leafs winning in 6, is what he said. And, of course, Corey, his record remains perfect, and Corey, both those teams eliminated, so you're out of it. But then we talked to a few of our friends, neighbors, people who've been on the show, etc. Fred Durk, my good neighbor, big Red Wing guy.
Oh, huge.
Now, he came after round 1, but I want to announce his picks just anyways. He has Nashville and Ottawa, and he has Nashville in 7. And the only reason I mentioned it, he did have a fine quote for me. He said, "Time to rake up the Leafs in the back of the yard." That's my good neighbor, and our little tongue in cheek there with him. Good going, Fred. Tom Baker, big fine athlete,
Retired school principal,
Absolutely.
separate school principal.
He had a tremendous text to me outlining his thinking. Chicago versus Washington, with Chicago winning. So Tom, unfortunately, is out too. Dr. Frank Little. Dr. Frank's been on the show. Tremendous information on concussions and insight. He had a tremendous email too. He has Edmonton versus Montreal, an all-Canadian final, which would have been fantastic, with Montreal winning. And I'm sure, Frank is quite depressed as we speak on the demise of the Montreal Canadiens. Sparky Leonard. Don Sparky Leonard, faithful listener. He selected the Oilers versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I love his loyalty. I mean, I don't think it's the smartest thinking in the world, but I love his loyalty to the Maple Leafs. He had Toronto winning the Stanley Cup, and he even selected Anderson to be the MVP. So good try, Sparky. My brother, Keene, who listens to the show faithfully.
Got to give him a shout out.
Yeah, he has the Oilers and the Penguins, with the Penguins winning it all. And he told me that next year we're invited down, CK Sports Talk. He'll be hosting in his front yard. He feels the parade route will be going by his front door. So he's invited us.
Good chance of that.
Yeah, he's invited us down to Toronto next year as he hosts a Stanley Cup parade party. Lori Leonard, Anaheim Ducks versus Pittsburgh. Winners, the Penguins.
Still alive.
Yes. What about our good bud, Seth Griffith, who's just had a tremendous year at the Marlies? And I liked his picks. I think we knew what they were going to be. But he has the Ducks versus the Leafs, with the Leafs winning it all. And I guess he kind of had to go that route, didn't he?
Well, and he picked Dave Keon to score the winning goal, and I had to straighten Seth
Number
out,
7. And then, Pete, way back, before the playoffs started, we stuck our necks out.
Yeah, we did.
We made our selections. You took the Minnesota Wild. You said this is going to be the surprise of the Stanley Cup playoffs. You took the Minnesota Wild against the Washington Capitals and picked the Capitals to win it all. So you're still alive.
Half alive, yeah.
Yeah, half alive. And I was very high on the Chicago Blackhawks. I just thought they are playoff tested, and I picked Chicago and Pittsburgh with Chicago winning, and I think I even mentioned that Jonathan Taves was going to be the MVP of that series.
Not a bad hockey player, but Shawn, if I, with my small amount of money and your billions of dollars, I would have wagered that they would never go out in 4 straight. 4 straight.
Yeah, and both Chicago and Montreal, I've listened to the press releases from the press conferences with both of their GMs. And boy, those two teams really felt they were going to go, quite the distance. Montreal has a ton of decisions to make. Carey Price is a free agent in another year. They haven't scored any goals. I think they scored 7 goals in 6 games. Montreal did. They've got to get some scoring.
Where was Max Pacioretty?
He's never scored a playoff goal, I believe.
Wow.
And he, I think he had the most shots on net by any Canadian. I think he had 1 assist in the whole series. So, I'd say trade him and get rid of him and sign John Tavares.
I think John Tavares is coming our way.
The Red Wings?
Well, wouldn't you love that? I'll tell you.
So anyways, there's going to be some interesting. And I'll tell you, the GM Bowman of Chicago was darn right emotional about it, talking about his team getting eliminated, and this doesn't happen in Chicago. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on. And we would be remiss if we didn't at least get a little bit of Red Wing talk in. Don't look at me like that.
Okay.
And Pete, I happened to watch the final game and the closing of the Joe Louis Arena, and it was outstanding. It was really something special. And how many octopi do you think were thrown on the ice that final game? I was quite anxious to see what would happen.
I'm going to say 20.
35 octopi.
Oh my goodness!
And I don't even know if octopi is a word to be.
I think you're right.
Honest
That is
with you.
plural.
But what a great run at the Joe Louis Arena, and who can forget 1997, 1998, 2002, 2008, all those Stanley Cups, and after that final game, Pete, they had a show. It lasted well over an hour. They brought out all current and former players. Brendan Shanahan had a nice video piece. Mike Babcock had a nice video piece. And what really stuck with me, in 1982, the Ilitches bought that franchise. And in 1983, their first draft, they drafted one Steve Yzerman.
Not a bad pick.
Not a bad pick. And it'll be very interesting to see, where the Red Wings go, especially with the new building. And one final thought. One of my favorite all-time Detroit Red Wings, even though he never won a Stanley Cup with them, was Bob Probert. And Bobby was just something special. And he passed away a number of years ago. And his wife was there wearing his jersey and when they introduced all the players. And it wasn't on TV, but we hear she brought his ashes and distributed them in the penalty box.
That's perfect.
Which I thought is kind of a wild story, But hopefully our Red Wings. And if you think about it, Pete, we talked about this on a previous show. To me, it's not the interesting piece is not who makes the playoffs. It's who doesn't make the playoffs. Because next year, does Vancouver, does Winnipeg, Buffalo's very young, Tampa blew it. Who from those teams now make the playoffs, and who will be who'll be out? So it's going to be an interesting off season. We still have lots of hockey to go, thank God.
Yeah, I want to ask you about the Buffalo Sabres. Is Jack Eichel the owner, general manager of that
something's
team?
going on there because they got rid of everybody. And, the report was Eichel wasn't happy with the coach or whatever. He denied it, of course. But they have some real talent on that team. I think they are a sleeper. But anyways, we still have lots of hockey left. And, Pete,
what are our matchups in the next round here?
Well, it's Nashville and St. Louis.
My goodness.
Nashville quite rested. Edmonton and Anaheim. Anaheim quite rested. The New York Rangers and Ottawa, and that's the series I'm going to follow closely. And, of course, Pittsburgh and Washington will be great, too.
Crosby, Ovechkin, and then you got Lundqvist versus Karlsson. A couple of Swedish fellows going
For
at
sure. And I talked to you on the way up, Pete. We were going to talk about maybe 3 players that thus far you have watched and have really impressed you in the Stanley Cup playoffs? I mean, we get a couple games every night. It's nonstop hockey. It's fantastic. Talk to me. Who's really caught your eye?
Well, one guy especially, and I think this series is going to be interesting. St. Louis and Nashville, because Nashville's got some big grinding, slow the game down guys, and they're a very good hockey club. You don't dispose of the Blackhawks in 4 and not be a great hockey club. But the St. Louis Blues, Vladimir Tarasenko, I saw him play in Toronto, not live, but on TV, and I also. I just think he is incredible. He's a game changer.
Yeah,
and
he's one of the best kept secrets in the NHL, by the way, I believe.
Really is, and a kid that really impressed me in this past series. I shouldn't say kid because he's done so well in playoff hockey. Is Justin Williams of the Washington Capitals. He, really Ovechkin scored a couple of goals, but he wasn't as noticeable as a captain I think should be. So.
Right.
Williams, I think, is a guy that can make a difference.
And I think he's a free agent this year, and he's from Coburg, Ontario, and I suppose you want him in the blue and white too.
Well, it'd be beautiful because he's a mucker and a grinder, and he can score goals. And you know what? The other player, and let's be honest here, this kid has moxie. He's 19 years old. He was the number 1 overall pick, and he is, Shawn, the real deal. Austin Matthews. And I love his demeanor. He doesn't showboat. He's very quiet, unassuming. And if he stays healthy, he is going to have himself an incredible hockey career.
Yeah, for sure. A good pick. He's really done it all. Pete, if I think about my 3 right off the bat, Henry Lundqvist of the Rangers. I just saw someone who, if they got him a goal, lookout scout, because King Henry was just going to close the door, and that's why the Rangers, I think, are going to be could be a real sleeper here. And by the way, Henry Lundqvist, the best interview in hockey. I love it. They ask him a question, he names every defenseman that played in front of him and blocked a shot, and he's just an interviewer's dream. You ask him a question, he goes for 15 minutes.
And the Rangers have those fedoras, like whatever top player, they get to wear the fedora.
That's right.
He wore it.
He wore it in a number of the interviews.
Should.
I really love him. And a person who really impressed me, and this might surprise people, but of the Montreal Canadiens, Alexander Radulov. Now, he is a free agent. They signed him for 1 year. I just found him to be an absolute beast. I one of the few people I felt on Montreal that really stuck his nose. He had a tremendous overtime goal. He's a free agent, Pete, and I'll tell you, he was just an animal. And the third person I've really liked in these playoffs, and this can be no surprise to anyone, is Carlson, the defenseman for Ottawa, the team captain. I think he's really established himself as I think maybe the best defenseman in the NHL. He is strong defensively, tremendous shot, and it should be interesting to see if he carries Ottawa through the New York Rangers and Henry Lundqvist.
Yeah, it's you just got to love Stanley Cup playoff hockey. I think it was good for the country that the Leafs were in the playoffs. It was very exciting. It just everybody was talking about it. You saw the blue and white. It's been so long, and I think things are for them certainly are heading in the right direction. That's for darn sure.
Well, we'll be able to follow up here in future shows because we have a ton of hockey left, and we're going to be playing to early June, Pete. So it's going to be fantastic. So.
Hey, I got a couple of bits of other information.
Sure.
We want to talk a little bit about. We've seen some PGHL changes. The Lakers have been sold now and back to a local community group, and it looks like Rick Van Cooley is going to be the head coach. Bill Cumming is the new head coach out in Blenheim.
For sure.
These are guys we're going to have on in future shows. And I want to give a shout-out to Big Dave Cameron, Mountain Dave Cameron. I want people to go to YouTube and Shawn, you're going to love these. They're little golf video clips that he's involved in. Big Dave Cameron Mountain comes rolling up in a golf cart. Bushwhackers. I encourage everybody, get to your computer and take a look at Bushwhackers. It's quite humorous. And Shawn, in future shows coming up, we want to talk to maybe Jake Hooker and talk a little bit about Buxton Raceway. We want to talk a little lacrosse.
The Red Devils are off to a tremendous
great start
with 2
and
victories and a big crowd here, by the way. I think 450, 500 people in Wahlsburg to see the last game here, and that's only going to grow, and off to a 2-0 start for the Red Devils.
Fantastic. And then Jay Salisbury, who's the president of the Pickleball Club, in a couple of weeks, we hope to have him in studio and give us a little bit more information about that. And Shawn, this Wednesday, Patty and I are heading down to Cincinnati, and we're going to meet up with Phil Jones of Dynavision. And, you know, Dynavision, they are very close to sealing a deal with the National Football League and selling their product that really has much to do with concussions and about
concussion management.
Exactly. And we're going to talk to the leading concussion specialist in the U.S. of A. He works right out of Cincinnati. So I'm going to have a chance to chat with him, and we'll air that interview.
Do another show on concussions. Maybe even try to get Dr. Frank Little in again, because
absolutely.
I know he's really committed to that cause here locally.
Well, partner, it's been a dandy. We hope everybody out there is enjoying it. We hope that our microphone issues have been fixed up. That's for sure. And we hope that you continue to support us here on CK Sports Talk, the Mighty XS. So for our producer, that's Mr. Corey North, who'll be heading south to Richtown, that is. For my partner in crime, you know him as the Wizard from Wallaceburg. He is Mr. Shawn Patrick Moynihan. My name's Peter Cobb, saying so long.
Thanks for listening to CK Sports Talk. Tonight's show was brought to you by Victory Ford Lincoln, the Chatham-Kent Sports Network, and 99.1 CKXS. For more local sports news and information, log online to the Chatham-Kent Sports Network at cksn.ca.